Hi guys! So I thought I would do Sophia's official update for her Denver visits. Every time. And so I was going to go through each appointment and what they said at each appointment, and then kind of let you guys know exactly what was said. I kind of like briefly touched on it if you watched our vlog from Denver, but we didn't talk about every single thing just because we were, you know, in the car and going to different places. The dogs. Okay, so we got there Monday afternoon, but the appointment started Tuesday. So Tuesday she had her lung ultrasound, her kidney ultrasound, and she saw her pulmonologist. And is that all she had? I think she also did her echo Monday, if I recall correctly. So her lung ultrasound, we had that done because she was sick back in March, and she was sick with a sinus infection, and she was put on amoxicillin, and she seemed to be getting better, but then as soon as the antibiotics ended, all of her symptoms came back. And so her doctor here thought that she has built up an immunity to amoxicillin because she's been on that on and off like all winter, and she's used it quite often since she's been born. Because she's had a lot of sinus infections and those kinds of things. So she was put on Ceftonir for another 10 days, and her doctor here wanted to do a lung ultrasound to check for pneumonia if her symptoms didn't go away in about 3 to 4 days after she had started the, I don't know if you can hear her, but she's supposed to be napping, but she is not. Anyway, if the coughing and congestion and fever hadn't gone away within 3 to 4 days after starting the second antibiotic, and they hadn't gone away, so we went to our local hospital to get a lung x-ray done here. And when we got to the hospital, we did the x-ray, and they were like, you guys can't leave. And so we thought, oh, she must have pneumonia, like we're gonna be admitted or we're gonna be flown to Children's, and then they told us to go home and that our doctor was going to be calling us. And so Sophia's doctor called and said that it showed pulmonary edema, which is extra fluid on the lungs, but that is not an illness related, that is heart failure. And so I was freaking out, of course. So she was calling Denver, and Denver was like, oh, you know, there's nothing to worry about. It looks the same as what it did the last time she had an x-ray done here, which was in 2015. But in 2015, the last time she had an x-ray done, she had pneumonia. So that it shouldn't have looked the same. So I emailed her cardiologist, who of course was on spring break at that time. Her cardiologist got a hold of me like the next day or the day after that, and she was like, there's no way. Like, even though she has a heart defect that is unrepaired, the way that her heart is, it really wouldn't be possible for her to go into heart failure, especially that fast, with no other signs. And she had no signs of heart failure, and you can see when somebody is in heart failure before you would ever see like a big buildup on their lungs. And so we decided to do an x-ray when we went up to Denver. So she had that x-ray done. That x-ray came back clear and fine. So it was either user error in our hometown, or she did have some pneumonia that was cleared up with Ceftonir. And since she has a heart condition and that was on her records at the hospital, they just made an assumption based off of her heart condition instead of looking at what they were seeing. And our hospital here is not fit for children, and especially special needs kids. So her lungs are fine. Long story short, long story long probably. Her kidney ultrasound, we do that at least every 6 months. I try to do it every 3 to 4 months. Some trisomy parents do it every 6 weeks. Trisomy kids, specifically kids with trisomy 18, are more prone to get Wilms tumors, and those are tumors on the kidneys. And so she gets those scans regularly. Those came back normal, and her pulmonary doctor, we just saw him to do a regular checkup, and he's the one that pulled up her lung ultrasound too. He was fine and said that she looks great. Obviously, he thinks that her tone is improving, so the next time we go up there, he wants to redo a sleep study to see how much support she may need for a BiPAP at night. She's really bad about wearing BiPAP because she has obstructive sleep apnea. If you snore at night, it's a sign that you have apnea, so that could be something that you need to look into. And she snores big time. And when they do sleep studies, they have you sleep on your back, and that's the worst positioning possible because everything falls back. And so it wasn't as bad as it was when she did her first sleep study, but the last sleep study she did, she still had pretty significant obstruction when she was on her back, but she did not require oxygen, which I think we said last time. But he still wanted to keep the BiPAP on her until we could do the next sleep study. And then the next day we saw, I have all of her paperwork in front of me. We saw her special care doctor, which is like a pediatrician, but she specializes in special needs kids. And she is a fantastic doctor. And when we see her, we also see a nutritionist to talk about if we need to go up on like vitamins, or if we need to add anything back, or if we need to switch formulas or anything else through her G-tube. And we just talked to her about the different things that Sophia is doing. Her weight, which Sophia is small, of course, but she is going at her own pace, and she is growing in an upwards trajectory, so that's good. And let's see, and for a kid with trisomy 18, she's actually pretty large. And she pulled up the kidney ultrasound, and she's the one that looked at that. The nutritionist came in, and we may be switching to a different kind of food for Sophia within the next couple of months, but it'll be when our feeding supply company is able to get that in, which I'm excited about because it's a whole food instead of a formula. It's a whole complicated tube feeding thing. So that would be a whole different video on itself. That was the only appointment for that day, so that's when we went to the zoo. And she wanted to order blood work on Sophia, so she ordered blood work, but wanted to wait until after we saw the rest of the doctors to make sure that they didn't have anything else that they wanted to get done either, so she didn't have to get poked more than once. The next day, and we did the echo Tuesday, but we didn't see her cardiologist until Thursday because there was like a family thing going on with her. The next day we saw, we went to the CP clinic first, and we saw the rehab doctor, the orthopedist, and a PT at the same time. And Sophia does not have CP or cerebral palsy. The only reason why we went to the CP clinic is because they wanted her to see all of those specialists at the same time. So they wanted her to go to that clinic so she could see the specialists that run that clinic. And So it's not that she has cerebral palsy, it's just that she needed to see the same specialist. Obviously, if you are familiar with cerebral palsy, you would know that she doesn't have it. She's much too low toned to have cerebral palsy. Her orthopedist, we saw him in October and he was fine. He wanted to do scans on her hips because they were talking about possible surgery, and he wanted to look at her back again to check scoliosis. She doesn't have scoliosis, so that's good. Her hips, it was a little confusing because her hip is like out of place, and it didn't develop completely normally because she is behind physically. She hasn't put the same amount of weight on her body as other kids do at this age, and so her hips haven't developed into the sockets the same way other kids have. But her hips actually look like they're better, which he said wouldn't happen because percentage-wise, probably can't see, but percentage-wise, in October it was at 54%, and this time it was at 38%. And he was saying that that wouldn't happen. I don't even understand. But the first thing that he did when he walked in was say, what is her life expectancy? And that was the first thing he said as he was sitting down. And I said, she wasn't supposed to live past 2 weeks. And then he kept asking over and over and over again, how long is she going to live? I don't know. Who's the oldest person that you know with trisomy 18? And you know what? He's asking these things out of nowhere, so I'm trying to pull these kids out of my head that I keep remembering, and the ones that I remember, there's a little girl who's 12 and she's in beauty pageants, and I use her a lot for doctors to see, but she's obviously not the oldest that I know. So I mention her, but then I'm like, no, she's not the oldest. And then I think of Cammie, who is in Denver actually, and she's 21, but she's not the oldest that I know. There's a woman who's actually in her 40s who has mosaic trisomy 18, and she's married and has kids, and he just kept asking what is her life expectancy, and it's just ridiculous. Basically he was saying that he doesn't, on one hand he's saying that she needs the surgery, on the other hand he's saying that we may consider not doing the surgery because if she's only going to live to be 20 or 12 or whatever, why would we put her through a surgery? And the surgery would be to avoid arthritis, and their arthritis would begin at around 20. To be clear, because I know that most people don't know trisomy 18, it's a chromosomal abnormality. So she was given 2 weeks to live, and then statistically they're like 5 to 10% make it to a year, but the newer studies show if they make it till 1, they'll make it till 5, and basically the longer they live, the longer they'll live. It is not a degenerative disorder. It is not something like spinal muscular atrophy, where it is something where she will start to get worse. That's not how this is. It's just an extra chromosome. Her internal organs, if she had something like an abnormality with them that could cause a degeneration in her health, that would be different. Like if she had a heart condition that was causing pulmonary hypertension, that could cause you know, like a within 5 years, this severe pulmonary hypertension may take her, but she doesn't have that. So the most likely thing with kids with trisomy 18 is a severe illness that happens with them, because they don't handle illness as well as the average person, and that's just the way that it is. So there is no way for us to say anything. And so the way that I see it is, we can either live like she's gonna die tomorrow, or we can live like she's going to have a long life. And we've already done the former. So we are not going to live like our kid is going to die at any moment, and we are not going to treat her as if she is going to die next week or next month or next year. And could something happen to her? Yes, but something could happen to anybody. And so we're going to be switching doctors. He is willing to do the surgery, but we don't trust him, because if he doesn't see the value in doing this surgery for her, I don't trust him to cut her open. So that was not the best visit, because having a doctor hound you about how long your kid is going to live isn't fun. We also saw a rehab doctor at that time. He recommended a couple of different like a different walker. It's a gait trainer, that's what it is. I think I may have shown her in a gait trainer on 1 or 2 videos, but it's just to help her be able to walk. And then she saw a PT there who actually showed us this different gait trainer, and so I showed her PT here, and she's looking into it. Let's see. Then she saw her neurologist, and her neurologist actually upset her the last time we were up there, because she said, I can't remember what she said, but she said something that, I can't remember what she said, but it really upset Sophia the last time, and Eric was like, we need to leave now. And this time, the doctor said something, and Sophia answered her back, and Dr. Pullat, maybe I shouldn't say her name, I don't know, whatever, but she was like, she understands what we're saying. And she was like, okay, well, we're going to have to start watching what we say in front of her, and you need to warn doctors every single time you see them that they need to be careful what they say in front of her. And so that was pretty cool, because that was her neurologist, and that was the doctor that had actually upset her the last time that she said something in front of her. But she had this head shaking thing that she was doing when she was sitting, when she was getting tired, so we just checked with her on that. That wasn't a big deal. It was just like a muscle fatigue. And then I think I said last time, they did an MRI on her. Her brain looks fine, but her cerebellum's a little bit smaller than normal, and that's just something that would affect some motor skills and some balance, and I guess that can make you have a few tremors every now and then. So that is what, that's what is most likely causing that or muscle fatigue. So there's no concern for some sort of like seizure activity there. And she wants to, no, I don't know if she wants to do another EEG, but we'll see her in 6 months near our hometown, hopefully. I guess they're kind of cutting funding coming down here, which is just great. And then we saw her cardiologist, and her cardiologist said that her heart looks great and everything looks fine. And her cardiologist wanted to before, but we had asked all the doctors up until then, and she got cleared to wait a full year, well, 9 to 12 months, but if we would just waited 9 months, we'd be driving in the mountain passes in January, so we're not gonna do that. So a year we can wait with all of the doctors besides neurology, but she comes down to like an hour away, like I said, for a whole year, so we don't have to go back to Denver until next April, which is crazy. So Sophia is doing that good. That's so exciting. So I think that is the like kind of full updates. Oh, all of her blood work came back fine that she did, and she sat really well through it and everything. Of course, she hates getting poked, but she sits really well through blood work. She's a trooper when it comes with that. But yeah, that is the full update on everything that happened. As far as appointments go, I believe that is all that we saw. But if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new, and we will see you guys next time. Bye!